Hello everybody and welcome back to Teachers Talk Money, where I help teachers master their money in order to give back to themselves. Today we're going to be going through my budget for December 2021. This is the last month of the year, obviously, and that means that I'm going to be tracking my net worth for the entire year of 2021. I'm going to be doing a video looking at all of my spending that I've done, all of my expenses over the entire year. So lots to look forward to on the channel coming up because we'll have a lot more, an entire year's worth of data to look at. But today we're just going to be taking a look at this month, and it's a pretty interesting one because I have quite a bit more income to work with than typical for a number of reasons. But let's take a look over my shoulder at my budget and we can get into all of that and how I'm allocating that income. Okay, so everybody, so here we are in my budget for December 2021. And the first thing we need to take a look at is our income. This is what you start with anytime you're making a budget, but this month in particular, my income looks quite different than usual. The first reason for that is that it's a 3-paycheck month actually in December. This happens when you get paid bi-weekly. You have usually two months during the year where you get 3 paychecks. Since I'm a teacher, I only get one of those magical unicorn months, as I call them, and December is it. So I'm getting an entire extra paycheck than I'm used to budgeting for in a typical month. And in addition to that, I am getting some incentive payment this month. I talked about this in my last video because I believed that the incentive payment was coming in November. It turns out it's actually coming in one of our paychecks in December. So this is, just to give some background, a small incentive check that teachers are getting because they paused our steps this year. So a little bit extra money in my pocket, but not really extra because obviously if I were being paid at the salary rate that I was supposed to be, I would be getting more than this. But this is their attempt to sort of make up for a little bit of that loss of income. So in addition to the 3rd paycheck I'm getting this month, I'm estimating about $700 in my pocket that I wouldn't typically have to use in a month. So usually I use a method called zero-based budgeting, where every single dollar that I have coming in as income for the month, I budget to go somewhere, whether that be to my fixed costs or my variable cost or to savings. As you may have noticed this month, this is the total income I'm bringing in, and the total expected expenditures do not equal the total amount that I'm bringing in, and there's a reason for that. Essentially, when we moved into our new apartment from our old apartment, I got into a really bad financial habit completely unintentionally. And that habit is having the money that I've budgeted for rent accounted for in the month that rent is due versus having it the month prior ready to be paid out. Like, for example, for last month in November, the $920 that I had accessible came in my first paycheck in November versus like already having it there in my bank account. I'm not sure what the exact term for this is, but it is something I've read about before, and I completely just mistakenly fell into this when we moved. And it's not a huge problem because I have the privilege of living with a partner who pays the rent in full, and then I give him my half. So I was able to just wait for my first paycheck in that month and pay him then. But that's not a habit I want to be in. So what I'm essentially doing with this budget in December, because fortunately I'm getting 3 paychecks, is that I'm keeping some money unaccounted for so that I can just have it in my checking account ready to go for next month's rent, if that makes sense. I feel like this is really confusing, but in my head it's making a lot of sense. And in addition to that, you'll notice there's a little bit more than the amount I have for rent not allocated in this budget. And that's just to kind of leave some room for where I want to use that money because I just haven't quite decided yet. And potentially keep it as a buffer in my checking account because my buffer is a little bit skim these days just from having a couple months this year where I went over budget. And I guess to make this clearer, what I could do is like double this amount in my actual budget, like make it clear that I'm paying for this month's rent and delegating the rest of the money for next month's. Okay, so I guess that makes it a little bit clearer. Now you can see that I've just budgeted about $200 less than what I'm taking in this month. So let's take a look at what I have done with the rest of the money available to me this month, how I'm going to allocate it. First, we have my fixed expenses, double my rent, and then $85 for car and renter's insurance, $45 for my phone bill, and $6 for my subscriptions. Those have pretty much been the same for a really long time. In my variable expenses, I did up groceries to $220, up from like $200 to $210 is my normal. Same with dining. I just wanted to add a little bit of a buffer for anything that might come up, especially since it's the holidays and it's going to be a really busy month for me also. And then same thing with my other fund, just a little bit of a buffer. $100 for gas and $115 for utilities. Everything in this category is just like pretty much what it normally is with just a little bit more wiggle room. And then we have the exciting part of my budget, in my opinion, which is my savings. I'm delegating $150 to gifts, which should help me kind of continue to buy gifts throughout the month. $150 to travel, $80 to my business, $360 to my summer money fund, which has to be that amount at minimum every month in order for me to live off of the savings account in the summer. $300 for grad school. This is more than typical, but just adding in a little bit extra since I have this income to work with. $500 into my car fund. This won't be fully funded until about $6,000. And there's barely anything in it now, so I'm just trying to get a little bit of a head start on those savings while I have some income to work with. And then $70 for Hattie's expenses. That's the average of what it costs to buy everything we need for her in a month. So I got to have a little bit of fun adding some money to these savings accounts, which should be really helpful for all of these different savings goals. One thing that is changing, because I'm sort of using my third paycheck to provide me with a buffer for rent, it will not be going to my Roth IRA. That was the original plan for my third paycheck. So all I'm going to have to attempt to fully fund this in 2022 will be my stipends, which I get for coaching a sport and being the newspaper sponsor at my school, and whatever I get on my tax refund. So it could be that after I receive my stipends and my tax refund, I still haven't gotten to that $6,000 Roth IRA contribution max for 2022. And so I may need to kind of invest more out of my paychecks in addition to that. So we'll see how that goes. And honestly, I'm not totally certain that I'm going to keep this exact budget. It's definitely possible that I might contribute less to my car fund, for example, and put some of that into my Roth IRA. So I'm keeping my options open, but right now I think this is what we're sticking with. For those of you who are new here, this budget works by me, typing in all of my different costs for things in the variable category, and then those keeping track of it here for me. So I can see all my separate transactions, and it totals it up in addition to my fixed costs and my savings. And as always, you can of course get your own copy of this budget at the link in the description of this video, teacherstalkmoney.com/budget. So it's kind of a weird one this month. Wish me luck with the busyness of this and sort of maintaining this budget and also making decisions about where I might want to shift things. And of course, let me know in the comments below if you have any questions at all. I'm really excited to do my December net worth update at the end of the month to see how much I was able to grow my net worth this year, and also to do my yearly spending video where I look at everything I spent this year and compare it to 2020. I hope you all have an amazing week, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!